Alright, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and today's topic of conversation: has Gillette just produced the Last Jedi of shaving adverts? Now the reason I'm asking that question is because in the last day or so, Gillette, the company which specialises in shaving products for men, has just released a brand new advert. There's just one problem with this advert. This advert denigrates their core target market, males, and then it delivers a lecture about how they need to buck up their ideas and stop doing all these awful things. I cannot believe that a corporation okayed this advert. I cannot believe that a corporation thought that this would be a good idea. Not since The Last Jedi have I seen a corporation produce a piece of content that is so totally tone deaf and out of touch with their core demographic. Let's have a look at some of the key aspects of this advert. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I just want to touch on a couple of key moments in this advert to explain why they are either highly dubious or absolutely absurd. And I think you'll get a feel for why this is such a marketing fail. So let's start with the very opening salvo that is delivered by this advert.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it?
Okay, so right from the very beginning there, the implication is very, very clear. You've got a group of men, and overlaid is some narration about toxic masculinity and the Me Too movement, which is all about sexual assault and rape. And then you ask the question, is this the best a man can get? The implication couldn't be clearer. The idea that's being promoted here is that not only is this the norm for the majority of men, but in actual fact, this is held up by the majority of men as being the pinnacle of what masculinity is all about. So things like sexual assault and rape, apparently, according to Gillette, are being held up as the best a man can get. That's why you ask the question, is this the best a man can get? And then you have this bizarre imagery of this marauding gang of young feral males who burst forth from the Gillette logo. Now we'll talk more in a moment about why that was such a terrible marketing and communications decision. But let's move on now and have a look at the very first example of what supposedly is toxic masculinity that this ad offers up to us.
We can't hide from it.
Okay, so in this scene it's pretty clear again. Men are being accused of cyberbullying. But here's the thing, cyberbullying is not a gendered problem. Cyberbullying is an issue that happens across the biological sexes. Both males and females engage in some pretty horrific acts of cyberbullying. Now the reason this happens too is because of the fact that the technology itself lends itself to this very serious problem. Now this is something that doesn't really suit the narrative that they're trying to spin in this advert, that this is all the cause of toxic masculinity, but in actual fact it's got a lot to do with the technology. What happens is the more time that you spend on your devices and on social media, the more you get caught up, or the greater the risk becomes that you will get caught up in something called online disinhibition effect. Now online disinhibition effect, as the name suggests, is where your inhibitions tend to go out the window. Now there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one is when you get online, often what happens is you're just looking at your device, a few pixels on a screen and not much more. And what happens is your brain gets lulled into a state where it thinks that no one else is seeing what you're doing, that this is a very sort of private thing you're doing, when in actual fact everyone can see what you're doing. Secondly, because you're looking at pixels and not a real person, your usual empathy mechanisms, your usual tact mechanisms, they don't kick in like they should do. So if you were in a room having a conversation with someone and you said something to them that was a bit harsh and they started to cry, unless you're a psychopath, you are going to withdraw from your comments. If you're a good person, you might apologize. At the very least, what you will do is you'll sort of stop what you're doing because you'll realize, oh, hold on a minute, I'm doing something that's not good here. Your conscience kicks in, empathy kicks in. I've hurt this person. The problem is that when you're looking at pixels on a screen, you don't see the person, and so you just say some of the most heinous things, or the temptation is to say some of the most heinous things, and then you just keep going and going with this. And this is even worse when you're a kid. When you're a young kid and you haven't been properly formed yet in the practice of virtue and self-control and some of these other things that you develop into as your brain develops, then guess what happens? You're more likely to engage in these kind of behaviours. This is not a masculine issue, yet it is the first issue that is presented to us in an advert that is supposedly railing against the problems in the world caused by men. Then a bit later on, the advert focuses on this great evil in the world.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
That's right, folks. The problem of mansplaining. Mansplaining is a concept that is brought to you by the very same people who brought you the concept of manspreading. There's just one problem here. Mansplaining is not a male problem. It is a person problem. There's really no such thing as mansplaining. If you want to separate it into different genders, then you also have to come up with femsplaining, because women do this as well. This is a human problem. It's part of the human condition. This is what you might call person-splaining, because we do this to each other all the time. My wife and I will be out at a party, for example, and there'll be moments where I try and interject and say, I think what she really means is this. And my wife gets frustrated by it, rightly so. But then there'll be other moments at that very same party where my wife will do the exact same thing to me. I think what he really means is this, and I get frustrated by it. This is human nature. We do this. It's a very common problem. It's not a male problem though. Everybody does this. Femsplaining happens just as much as mansplaining does. Now, after they've tackled the great crisis of mansplaining that is plaguing the world, we get this moment in the advert.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
Now, this is another scene in this advert which is loaded with profound implication, because this imagery here, a group of guys standing around a barbecue, is imagery which is trying to present to us this idea that this is what happens with your typical male, because, you know, having a barbecue and standing around a barbecue is something that's very common. It's at the very least, you would say it's a trope that, you know, most blokes enjoy that kind of thing. So the implication here is that most blokes act the way they are being presented as acting in this advert, and in particular in this sequence here. You've got a bunch of typical blokes who are standing around and they are watching one kid beat the tar out of another, one kid who is clearly bigger than the other bullying that kid, and they're standing back going, oh yeah, boys will be boys, typical behaviour, come on, let's just get into it. Hey, bring your kids over, pull up a chair, we can all watch these kids smash each other, because that's what men do on the weekend. Oh, the best a man can get. Oh. This is sheer delusion. If you think that this is how your typical male acts, and specifically in this situation here, quite frankly, you are living in a fantasy world. And please don't try and suggest to me that absurd claim, oh no, well, just because it doesn't happen at your house, it doesn't mean that it's not happening all over the rest of your neighborhood or community. No, it's not, because this is not how the majority of men conduct themselves. If you know anything about masculinity, particularly about fatherhood, you'll know that fathers are very protective of their own children. And one of the things you'll also understand about fatherhood, if you've got a dad present in the home, is that fatherhood actually is a very powerful civilizing mechanism in the life of a young boy. Dads don't stand by and watch this happen in the majority of situations. In functional households, which is the majority of the situation still, what happens is dads intervene. Men intervene in these situations. They are nurturers and protectors, and they bring their physical prowess to bear to intervene and to curb the excesses of young boys who get out of control. That's what happens as the norm in these kind of situations. You know one situation where you might see feral young males though? And that's in family homes where there's not a dad present. Because dads, as I said, are a civilizing effect on men. So that the issue in the world that we're really dealing with here is not toxic masculinity in most of these cases, it's actually a lack of masculinity. The lack of good fatherly input and oversight. And then the last thing I want to focus on in this advert is this moment here.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
For some reason, Gillette thought that it would be a really good idea to use Anna Kasparian in such a prominent position in their advert. The very same Anna Kasparian who said this about females on US election night.
I have no respect for women who voted for Trump, okay?
Yeah, me too.
I think so poorly of them, and the reason why is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb, okay? I think you're dumb. You're an idiot. You're an idiot,
yes.
Okay? You are voting against your best interests. I'm losing my mind tonight because of how stupid the majority of the country is.
What the heck do you say about that? This is an advert which has a huge anti-bullying theme running through it, and the whole focus is really about the mistreatment of females, and they choose to give Anna Kasparian, who is known for this kind of conduct, pride of place within the advert. They give her a very prominent position at the very pivot point of the advert, where we're now pivoting from away from examples of bad behaviour now into something more positive, and that's what they choose to pivot on. This is just, I would say, a decision that is very typical of the failures that this advertising, this piece of communication, this piece of marketing represents. Remember that opening sequence, and we saw that marauding gang of young ferals, and they were bursting forth from the Gillette logo? What the heck is the implication there? First of all, that implication doesn't make any sense. What's being suggested here by that imagery is that Gillette has brought forth into the world, has given birth to this kind of feral behaviour. How? How has the slogan, "the best a man can get," got anything to do with these problems in the world? That doesn't make any sense. But secondly, who in this corporation, in this marketing department, thought that it would be a good idea to have your own brand as the thing that is presented to viewers as giving birth to all of these feral, toxic evils in the world? Who thought that that was a good marketing decision? It's not. It's terrible. You see, one of the things about advertising and marketing and communications is that if you're going to make an advert, the advert should be made for your target demographic, not about them. It should be made for them. If you're someone who thinks that any publicity is good publicity, you should definitely not pursue a career in marketing or communications, because that is simply not true. What you want with an advert is you want an advert that shows that you are relatable, that you are reliable, and that is building relationship with that core demographic who are going to buy your product. This advert does the exact opposite. It's not for that core demographic, it's about them. It's for a completely different demographic, and it denigrates the very core demographic that this product is supposedly all about. Now, there's nothing new about this corporate virtue signaling and advertising. You know, you might go back a few decades and you can see that Coke ad, you know, "I want to buy the world of Coke," as if somehow Coke was going to solve all the problems in the world. There's nothing new about this kind of corporate virtue signaling. Buy our product and you'll save the world, which is what this is just another example of. But the thing here is this. Let me mansplain something to you for just a second here. Us blokes, we already have a bit of an issue with pride. It can be a weakness of ours. And one of the things that men often struggle with, this is why we don't like looking at instructions so much, or listening to maps, advice from maps, and we try and do things our own way, is because we tend to think that we've got it all figured out, and we don't really like being told that we're wrong, or that we're weak, or that we've got a problem, and that we're not really helping things. It's one thing us blokes we struggle with. We struggle with being told that we're in the wrong. So you don't want to have an advert which starts by telling men that they are in the wrong if you are trying to advertise products that are for men. That's not where you want to start. And that weakness that we have for being told that we're in the wrong only gets worse if the lecture is being delivered by a faceless corporation. Gillette, you are not our father, you are not our brother, you are not our mentor, you are not our priest. So you need to stop acting like you're a father, a brother, a mentor, or a priest. You are a faceless corporation. Our relationship with you as men is purely based on utility. You have a product that we need because we grow facial hair and we need to shave that facial hair and keep it under control. You've got a product that we need. We've got something that you need. Money. This is a relationship that is built on nothing more than pure utility. There is no personal connection here. You can't even get personal with a faceless corporation. We don't know you. You don't know us. There is no personal connection. So you need to stop acting as if you are our father, our brother, our mentor, or our priest. You are not. That is not your role in the world. And I'll tell you what this advert screams of is that Gillette just doesn't understand men. That's what this advert says to me. We don't understand you. A lot of males have seen this advert, and what they've seen is, we don't respect you. That is not the message that you want to be delivering if you are trying to sell products to a core demographic that is male. That's the exact opposite of what you want to be saying. And the reaction to this advert just proves how much of a marketing mistake this advert is. This is, like I said, the Last Jedi of advertising campaigns. It has completely failed to understand the very demographic that it thinks that it is engaging with and speaking to. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please consider financially supporting the channel. The links for how you can do that are in the video description below. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Left Foot Media.